So our two short readings today are ones that I would suspect are quite well known, but they're most often associated with Easter. I find the whole Easter story profoundly moving, and for me it really is central to the message of Jesus. For in it we are taken on a journey with Jesus and his followers towards the pain and suffering of the cross, and then beyond to resurrection and new life. The Easter story is one of despair to hope and death to life. The mystery of the cross and resurrection, this sense of journey from despair and hope, was seen in some of our opening words, and I think it's a beautiful sort of a poem, or the very opening, that sense of slavery to freedom, the cave to life, desert to garden, darkness to light, exile to home, pain to healing, denial to embrace, and tolerance to affirmation. This sense of suffering and this sense of hope, the cross and the resurrection. A number of years ago I went to an evangelical church on an Easter Sunday. And the reason why I said it was very, very lively church, and as part of the Easter Sunday celebration there were lots of balloons, there were lots of cakes, there were lots of party poppers, and I remember really struggling with that myself. That's very personal, other people may not, and it's not that I'm opposed to having a good time, because I do like to party, but I felt it wasn't appropriate, and it sort of almost minimised the Easter story. I was thinking, I remember coming away sort of thinking there has to be something much deeper and much richer in the story of Easter. There has to be. My own journey as I searched for this something more, this something deeper, this something richer, was to take me to the depths of despair at times, where I not only doubted my faith, but I seriously doubted my own mental health as well. And I experienced a darkness and depression that I never ever knew existed. But most of all, I remember I lost hope. I lost hope in everything, and I lost hope in God. However, it was only by experiencing this and going through it was I then able to come out as such, and to be honest about who I am, and to be honest about what I actually believe. And here I am today, thankful for this space and this place where I can really live out my theology in a very real and honest way. It was because of this time of suffering that I was able to discover life and liberation. Out of something which was extremely painful, isolating and fearful over quite a number of years came life and hope. The Easter story does not avoid suffering, and neither do our own stories here tonight. I still have up and down times, and this is the reality of life, for we are not immune from suffering. None of us are. Yet at the centre of this, I believe there is something more. However, and here is where the mystery lies, for this then leaves us with an ongoing tension, which we see perfectly in our readings tonight. Despair, the cross, why have you abandoned me? The hope, he is not here, he is raised to life. This tension, and living with and alongside suffering and hope, and holding these things in some sort of balance, is not easy. Yet as we seek to do this, we are not alone. We hold this tension before God, we hold it with each other. I am a chaplain and I serve at Merseyside, and with colleagues I seek to provide holistic care to people as inpatients in a psychiatric hospital. And my role is to care for the spiritual well-being of people, and I am extremely honoured to do that job. I love it, but it's not without its challenges. I'm often asked hard questions about life, and they are questions that are asked out of real, lived, difficult situations. And they are questions that we all ask. Why is there suffering? If God is all-powerful, then why did he let this happen? Why is the world such a mess? And I remember a few months ago I sat with a young man who said to me, surely there has to be something more than this. There has to be more than this suffering that I'm experiencing. This person, like so many of us, was trying to make some sense out of what was happening, to see a way through it and beyond it. This conversation and phrase, there has to be something more than this, has stayed with me. I firmly believe that there is something more, and this is what keeps me going in my life, my work, and I believe does keep humanity going. The belief that there is something more, that tomorrow can be different, that things can be different, they can get better. And we see this clearly in our encounter with the Easter story, the two very short readings we have heard, the hope of resurrection, the hope of life. I remember early in the year, and I had an experience that I think probably we all have, and it was one of those sort of really profound moments that I think will forever just stay with me. And I remember I was driving to one of our other churches to do a service. I think it was just a week before Easter. And I remember driving in the rain down to St Michael's, and I went past the Everyman, and I saw this fella asleep in the soaking rain, covered in bags, homeless. And you know, I was outraged. I just absolutely felt so angry at a human being lying there. I remember just shouting out to God. I was just so angry. I just felt it was just absolute despair. And then I went and I did the service. And then as I was pulling out of the church, it was raining, but it was like starting to get sunshiny. And I remember seeing under like these little bunch of daffodils this beautiful bird. Absolutely perfect, beautiful bird. And within, it was just like one of those moments. And I thought, my gosh, this is it. This is the cross. This is resurrection. An hour ago, I'd seen this utter despair in this human being. And then I'd seen this absolutely beautiful bird. And I just thought, this somehow I've got to learn how to hold this tension. Because within an hour, I'd felt rage and despair. And then I saw this bird and I felt, my gosh, there's hope, there's life. Suffering is not and can never be the last word. And the German theologian Moltmann said this. He said, death is in life's very midst. Economic death of those who starve. Political death of the oppressed. Social death of those on the margins, the actual death of those killed by violence, war, and those forced to live in poverty. And to accept this as being inevitable is to empty the resurrection of its power, because suffering isn't inevitable. But I do not have any neat or tidy answers or easy answers to the many questions and situations that I'm asked within my role at work, within my role here as a priest, or that I ask myself every day. I lament over the suffering that I see, and it breaks my heart. But I do believe that within it and within the suffering that God is present. And Carl Jung says, bidden or not bidden, God is present. Whether we call on God or whether we don't, God is present. And I've got that on a plaque in my living room. And it's one of those things with my two cats and the plaque. You know, if you had to get out the house, what would you take? I mean, obviously, home for my husband. But I'd have a bucket and ivy, my two cats, and that plaque, because I love it. So, you know, but I just love it, because whether we call on God, the difference is some of us are aware that God's around, other people aren't, but God is always present. So tonight, we come together in this place with our own stories that will, no doubt, include encounters with both suffering and hope. And today we remember Coming Out Sunday, and as we think of this, no doubt it will spark many memories for many of you here. The struggles that you've had, and maybe the struggles that you are still having with coming out. And I also am very much aware of how these journeys can affect people's mental well-being too. And just last week we remembered World Mental Health Day, and I took part in that because I continue with my own journey of mental health. Yet within all of this, we come together tonight remembering that the cross, suffering, as we just heard, can never be the final word. There is something more than suffering. There is hope. And in a minute, we will share bread and wine in community. We will come together. And as we do, may we sense afresh how in this simple act, suffering and hope come mysteriously together. And here is that something more. Great is the mystery of faith. Christ has died, Christ is risen, and Christ will come again.